Welcome everyone to the first in our Positive Parenting with the VM Foundation webinar series. I am Samantha Charles, CEO of the VM Foundation. For this Parents Month, we are partnering with the University of the West Indies and the Child and Adolescent Unit from the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Western Regional Health Authority to bring you rich discussions on issues affecting you, our parents. We are confident that these conversations will help you as you grapple with challenges while parenting during a pandemic. Stay with us. Welcome back. In this episode, we will focus on healthy parenting strategies. With me today is Linda Craigie-Brown, clinical social worker and president of Parenting Partners Caribbean. Linda has worked in the area of parenting education and support for over 30 years. Her extensive experience in parenting interventions in Jamaica and throughout the Caribbean includes direct counseling with parents, community, and group interventions. She has managed parenting projects, developed training programs, and trained trainers and facilitators. Promoting better parenting practices has become her mission. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you so much, Samantha. It is such a pleasure for me to be here with you this morning.
And we're very happy to have you as well.
Good.
For starters, tell me, how would you describe healthy parenting?
Healthy parenting is another word that is being used, I suppose, and it links very closely with the concepts of effective parenting, proactive parenting, good parenting, and it falls within your mission for this series,
Indeed.
which is positive parenting.
Indeed.
So I prefer to bring all of it together rather than to talk about healthy parenting alone. But if we were to just pinpoint healthy parenting, what it is really ensuring that parents use the proper attitudes and practices to raise wholesome individuals, as they're bringing up their children. But if we want to expand it now into looking at positive parenting, and Jamaican parents really need to understand what is positive parenting.
I do believe so, yes.
Yeah, it's really nothing new to us, because as a culture, we really have had very positive practices over the years. It's recently in our history that we're having a lot of challenges with our children. Mm-hmm. And we need to get back to some of the old-time principles and practices that we used to have, the more positive practices.
And what would you say are some of those positive practices, for a few?
So positive parenting really begins with I don't want to use words that our parents might not understand. I was going to say an assumption that. But it's just a thought that children are born good.
Yes.
That they are not little demons waiting to come out and be unleashed on the society.
And we should start from that premise.
And we should start from that
premise
because recently, there's a lot of talk about generation of vipers.
Yes.
Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I know I didn't give birth to any viper, did you?
No, absolutely.
No. So we're not giving birth to vipers.
Yes.
We're giving birth to children that are inherently, basically good people. And that is one of the foundations of positive parenting, that you believe and you know within your heart that your child is a good person. And it also feels that our children have the desire to do what is right.
That's right.
It is within them to do what is right. But it is for us as parents now to bring those out And that is what positive parenting is, to begin to look at our children from a positive standpoint
Yes.
and to bring out the positives that we know is within them. I think as a society, we tend to be very negative.
Yes.
One of the things that I experienced growing up was people say you must not tell your children good things about themselves because them head will swell, that kind of a thing. And I am here to say no. Their head is not going to get swollen. But when you tell your children the good things about them, they are going to be affirmed, they are going to feel good about themselves, their self-confidence will be boosted, their self-esteem will be boosted. They'll know that they have good within them.
Nothing like affirmations. And I think this is why VM Foundation is doing this series. You know,
Wonderful.
we want to accentuate positive parenting. And you've just mentioned a while ago that a lot of negative is around. So one of the negatives or the chaos that we're living now is that we are in a pandemic. So what would you say is, how has COVID actually influenced or had an impact on raising our children in a positive way?
It is very hard, because if we have not begun with a premise that our children are good people, then it's going to make it worse. But if we have the premise that our children are good people, then we're going to make it better.
Yes.
And I say that because we now are thrown together. One of the first things that happened in the pandemic is that we had a lockdown. And it was such a frightening experience. Frightening for parents because we've never had that in Jamaica before. Frightening for children because it's a new situation. You can't talk to your friends. You can't go outside and play and all of that kind of thing. And what did it do? The relationships that were already, kind of borderline, the relationships that were already difficult, the relationships that were already challenged in one way or another became worse.
Yes, yes.
And we got a lot of parents complaining, I want to get this child out of the house. When school going to open again, I can't take them. And I didn't know that teacher had to do so much, and they're getting on my nerves, and I can't bother. This thing needs to stop.
Yes.
And you had another set of parents who said, wow, I didn't know that my child was learning so much. I didn't know that this child, loves to run around so much, and then he stops and he listens for a little bit, and then he comes back.
So there was some discovery of children and their nature and
opportunities that are there.
Yes.
Those parents who are looking at them in a more positive light see the opportunities that have been given to us by COVID. And those parents who, perhaps have not learned to do so are seeing the burdens and the challenges and the difficulties. And I'm not here saying that it is not difficult. It is.
Yes.
I am happy that I am not raising a child now.
Yes,
because
indeed.
it is hard.
But there are challenges around. Are some of these challenges unique to single parents or no? What would you say to that?
Single parents have their unique challenges. Challenges that come with being single. Single parents are already burdened with being the only parent, with having nobody to bounce things off, nobody to help, nobody to listen to, unless there is other family or community support.
So when you put the pandemic in that mix, with all of the other issues.
Yeah. And one of the things with our single parents as well is that they usually are in the poorer areas of our society.
Yes.
And when you add the pandemic on top of that, then it makes it doubly worse for them. So we want to encourage our single parents to reach out for assistance as much as possible.
Yes.
Because they are the ones who, when everybody locked down, some of them still try to go out and do a little hustling, to go out and, find a way to get to work and what have you. Because the money is very, very tight. And now you don't have this school feeding lunch or anything like that.
Indeed.
So you have to make sure that there is food in the house for the children and that they are supervised. even while you are challenged to go
Right.
and do
And as we
the
were
other
talking
things.
earlier, going to school and leaving home for a child was actually, in some instances, an escape.
Yeah.
You know, it was seen as possibly even a place to get breakfast,
Yes. A place to get lunch.
a place to be treated well or better than in the home.
Exactly.
And so when you face these challenges, you said a moment ago that they do require some resources. What would you say are some of the resources that are available to our parents to be able to help them to overcome some of these challenges? As well as, even though we're speaking about positive parenting, the child is affected in this, because when you parent, you are parenting a child. What are some of the resources also available for the child?
There are, thankfully, a whole set of new hotlines, for example,
Yes,
so a
yes.
parent can call in.
Yes.
I think there are hotlines at the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
And I hope you can put some of them on your screen a little
And we
later.
will, yes.
Where you can call if you have a problem, just understanding what this virus, COVID, is all about and what it could do to us and how best do we treat ourselves within that. There are hotlines from the Ministry of Education to help parents to understand how to use the online platforms, to understand what education programs are available for their children. There are hotlines from the National Parenting Support Commission, for example,
Yes.
and from the I am CPFSA, right? It's still a mouthful for me
Yes,
because
Child Protection and Family Services
right.
Agency, yes.
That to help parents to understand how to treat your children even within the home setting. So those parents who are having challenges, just understanding how to manage and how to treat their children.
Right.
Those resources are available.
So we understand this is a very difficult time, challenges all around, and more so parenting. Again, we had said earlier that in our discussions offline that parenting in itself is a challenge.
Yes, it is.
So when we do add the mix of a pandemic, we are looking at several other challenges. So being able to cope is certainly something that we want our parents to be able to do. And so what would you say are some of the key things our parents need to know in order to cope well with some of these challenges?
One of the things that our parents need to know, and it is so true of our women in particular, is how to take care of ourselves. Having done work in parenting for such a long time, parents complain. All you talk about is the children, the children, the children, the children. What
Yes,
about us?
Yes.
So as parents, men and women, we need to understand how to take care of ourselves. The little exercise, the little eating right, the little taking a little time out to just breathe and relax, to look at yourself, to look at your children, to take a new perspective in life, maybe, to see what they're doing, to talk about it with your partner, talk about it with a friend. I mean, we spend a lot of time on the phone talking all kind of things. Talk about your children and what they're doing and where they're going. Talk about yourself and what you'd love to do. And, in this pandemic, because we're not going out, we had a little bit of this discussion. So the clothes are in the closet getting rotten and the shoes are dry rotting and all of that. And, some people, I remember in one of my church groups, on a Sunday morning, we were not going out to church, but in the group, a few of the ladies dress up in their church clothes and, take a picture and pose off and show everybody.
Yes.
I'm in my church clothes. It's fun. It's different. It challenges us to just to take care of ourselves, to want to look good and to want to feel good. It's one of the first things I was saying to a young parent, that when you're on the plane, they tell you if a problem comes up and the oxygen comes down, the mask thing, you have to put on that mask before you attend to your children.
Absolutely.
Now, if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't take good care of our children.
Right.
We need to know, understand ourselves, and then on that background, we get to know and we understand our children. So that is one of the first things. in terms of being a positive parent, the whole issue of attachment, of relationships with our children is very, very important. And we just mentioned that what COVID has done is to provide a beautiful opportunity to build the relationship. And we build a relationship when we get to understand the child as he is.
Yes.
I mean, your children are different from my children.
Yes.
It wouldn't be fair for me to say, oh, Samantha's children are so well behaved, and boy, why can't you sit down and behave yourself like Samantha's children?
The comparison is not good.
Not
Yes.
good. Samantha's children are Samantha's children.
Right.
You are my child. You happen to be a little bit more hyper. You love to run up and down. You know, so we have to understand that each child is different, and we need to understand each child as he is. He learns differently from another child. Some will sit down and be beautiful, sit around the desk, focus on everything. You give them the tablet or the computer or the phone, whichever device you use, and they do the homework and they pay attention. There's another one who you have to call every 5 minutes. Come and sit down. Get into the class, that kind of thing. So it provides an opportunity for us to understand and to build that relationship. But we have to remember as parents that this child is ours to raise, and to raise properly, to raise with love, to raise with, you know, empathy. It means that we want to feel with the child. We want to understand what the child is going through at that stage of his or her development.
Right.
And I just want to say here that your 4-year-old is having different kinds of feelings from your 14-year-old.
That's a very good point, actually.
Yes.
I think sometimes as parents, we see all our children as the same. So if you have a household with 2 or 3 kids and the age range is different, they are actually feeling, and even if the age range is very close, I think the point you made earlier is that each child is different and each child is to be approached differently.
So you might have a boy who likes to make the bed and cook the breakfast in the mornings.
Absolutely.
And you might have a girl who prefers to play with the truck and the car and what have you. They are different. And I'm deliberately twisting the gender because in Jamaica we have such strong notions that, you know, our boys must not learn this and our girls must not learn that and whatever. Growing up and in my present household, the boy has to learn to do everything and the girl learns to do everything.
I would like to say that there are no household chores that are gender specific.
No. Everybody
I think we
jumps
need to know
in
that.
and help, and that is one way of building relationship. Come on, children. Today we are going to learn how to cook rice.
Absolutely.
And today we're going to learn how to cook Jamaican rice and peas that you love so much.
Indeed.
Come on, you're going to do the coconut and this one is going to do the whatever, and you're going to wash the rice, and we get together as family and we relate and we, you know.
Yes, and that certainly speaks to what you've been saying about positive parenting in terms of building that relationship. I think prior to now, certainly with the lockdown, we didn't have that closeness with our children. We're now in the house for an extended period of time. Everybody's in everybody's space. And so it's an opportunity, as you said, to be able to build those relationships, get to learn to know your children, treat each one differently, but the same in terms of love and care, but recognizing the difference between your children. When I say treat them differently, but recognizing the difference in the child, that this child is a different child from the other child. And so it's important that we see those differences. And I think something even more important you said was looking at self-care. I always think that I am not able to pour into my children unless I am full or almost full. And it does require of me to also ensure that I look to myself and take care of myself before I can take care of. So it's actually a very important component of positive parenting, being able to recognize where you need to take care of yourself to be able to pour even more into your children. Would you say? Yes?
Yes, I was reflecting that this COVID, I call it the COVID season. has
Yes.
given us so much. I have never seen so many webinars and seminars
Yes.
and online courses and all kind of things.
Yes.
And also parents who might have started out not even knowing how to use a smartphone, because their children now have to be on these devices. Many parents
Yes.
are now Zooming and WhatsApping and
Yes. Yes.
all of that all over the place. So it provides the opportunity for parents to learn. You talk about not being able to pour out if you're empty. We are now full of opportunities to learn new things.
In every crisis, there's an opportunity.
There is,
Yes.
and COVID, you can see it as a negative, but you can also look at the opportunities that it provides for us to grow and to become.
That's right.
something
And that's why we're
different.
here. That's why we're putting on this series, because we want to be able to showcase that there are positive reasons, there are
Yes.
positive things that you can do in parenting, because we recognize that there are challenges.
I think also because we tend to, there's so much negative news. We hear about the deaths and we hear about the hospitalizations and we hear about the spikes and the numbers going up and going down and so on. And when we keep focus on that, it feels, depressing.
Heavy.
Heavy is a good word. Depressing is where it takes us if we don't cope with that heaviness.
Yes.
But if we turn it around and look at the kinds of positive things, it's our attitude to what is happening.
Absolutely, yes.
And how we can use what is given to us, then it makes it much, much better for us to tolerate. So there are some people who will tell you that even with all of that negative news, they still find themselves in a happier space.
Yes.
Because they can look at what is happening and say, oh, so I can go online and learn something. I can read up a
Yes.
little bit more about parenting on the internet. I never knew that internet was on my phone. I could go and Google
Yes.
and find all of these things,
So many
We are
things
not-
have been brought to the fore for us in terms of learning and finding out
Oh,
information.
yes.
I think
and therefore being able to educate ourselves
Absolutely.
as parents and do so much better with our children.
yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Linda. This has been an absolutely wonderful conversation, very inspiring, as well as lots of tidbits. We love the strategies that you've mentioned. We are actually looking at things like the importance of self-care, the importance of
Yeah.
recognizing that each child is different. And I think the premise, the nugget that came out of this really is that each child is good, and we should see the good and the goodness in each child. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This has been the first in our series, Positive Parenting with VM Foundation. I'm your CEO, Samantha Charles. Join us next time for another episode in the series. If you need support as a parent, you may call the National Parenting Support Commission at 876-560-9272. There is also support for our children. There are child guidance clinics at our hospitals and health centers throughout Jamaica. We have the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Unit at the Ministry of Health at 876-633-8100. And there is the Jamaica National Helpline for Children and Teens Safe Spot at 1-888-723-3776. And you may WhatsApp at 876-439-5199. If you need to reach us at VM Foundation, please send us an email, vmfoundation@myvmgroup.com. And we wish for you positive parenting experiences always. And thank you so much for joining us on our main channels this evening, VM's YouTube and Facebook channel, as well as the University of the West Indies Western Jamaica campus, our partner in this, on their YouTube channel. We're now going to open up for questions, and we want to thank you all for being here and asking a few questions. Our first question up this evening is from a Dion Grant. And Linda, she's asking, do you believe parents can overdo on positives? A very interesting question. Probably not one that we would have been expecting really, because this is all about positive parenting. But she's asking, do you think parents can actually overdo on positives?
When I hear that, I immediately think about what we said about children's head swelling. You know, when you give them too many compliments. But yes, in a sense, when we look at the whole issue of self-esteem, for example, there is a way in which you can reward children that makes them feel that they are the best and the only thing since sliced bread. And there's nobody greater and nobody better than they are. And they do get a kind of overinflated notion of themselves. And so we have to be very careful as parents that we don't do that. In praising your children, there are several different ways of doing it. You can say to them, for example, you know that you are the best and you are the greatest and you are the this and you are the that. That is what overinflates, and that is what makes them feel what we call too good about themselves. So you want to balance it and say, boy, you did well today when you went to visit your grandmother and you scratch her head, you know, or you help that lady across the street. In other words, when you are rewarding, when you are praising, link it to the deed, link it to something that the child has done. And it helps them to understand and to keep, so to speak, themselves within context. So the goodness is not over elevated. And then we also need to balance it when we have to criticize, or when we have to scold, or we have to tell them about things they do that we do not agree with. That we don't now put up a pin in the balloon and burst it completely and totally, so that the child becomes completely deflated. So we don't want to overinflate and we don't want to deflate. We want to keep it real and keep it balanced.
Yes, so there is an importance about it being balanced and doing everything in, I guess, moderation. So balancing the affirmation along with also the reality of the situation, not too much positivity as well. I think in life, everything we really do need to do with balance and moderation. Dion asks, as a follow-up question too, she asks, what do you say to parents who are at their wits' end and find it difficult to be positive? So this is the other end now. You know, a parent who has been, you know, just totally frustrated, and as she says, at their wits' end, what do you say to those parents? They really find it difficult to be positive.
Do you know that when the situation is, even when it looks very, very bad, we can still find some goodness within it?
There is good in everything.
Yes, and you can ask a parent like that to reach out to somebody else, somebody who knows them and can give them the kind of encouragement that they need, as well as they can encourage themselves. And we talk about moments of reflection, moments of being by yourself and just looking back at your day, looking back at what you did during a specific time period. It could be a week or whatever. Don't be too hard on yourself. We all make mistakes. We all have times when we're overwhelmed, when we're drowning, when we're underneath. But we need to look at it and to see what are the good things, what are the positives that we have been able to do during those times. And we need to encourage ourselves, because this season will pass, you know. Things do change and better does come from time to time. So, but if it is a feeling that remains with you for a long time or a prolonged period, then you must reach out to a counselor, to a good friend who you trust, to somebody who can help to pull you out of that situation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Linda. I want to also add, there are a couple questions coming in, and please, please, please put your questions in the chat. We are on Facebook and YouTube at the VM Group platform and on the YouTube platform for our partner, University of the West Indies Mona Western Campus, on their YouTube page as well. I have a comment here from Anne-Marie Maxwell that I'd like you to comment on, Linda. She says, what parents need to do is help their children when they come from school each day and not leave everything on the teachers. What would you say to that?
We would have thought every parent knew that, wouldn't we? But sadly, it is not so. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, a lot of parents leave everything on the teacher because I don't feel competent enough as a parent to do what the teacher does. I can't read well, or I can't do the maths, or I don't know anything about geography. I don't know anything about, these nice new things that children are learning. Take a leaf out of some older people's book. They couldn't do the math, they couldn't do the reading, but they made sure the child would sit down and do the homework. And even though they can't read, they look on the book to see how many positive sticks the teacher gave the child for the day, and how many X's or how many zeros the teacher wrote in the book. And it helped them to keep on track of what the child is doing. So we know the signs and we can use them. But the important thing is that we get into discussions with our children, have them teach you a little bit about what they learned today. And if they're not on top of it, then you will realize that they're not really able to explain themselves. The important thing, though, is for parents to realize that we are partners in the child's education. They're our children. They don't really belong to the teachers. They're really our children, and their education is our duty and our responsibility as well. So parents need to get on board and get involved.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes. I'm a parent of 3, and I must say, if I can add my own comment to this particular comment from Anne-Marie Maxwell on Facebook, is that, I used to ask my children when they were younger, what did you learn at school today? And to get them to explain to me. And the minute they started explaining, I would say, oh, really? I don't understand that. Explain that to me. Knowing full well most of their work, of course. Nowadays, they can't really say that with all of the questions that they get in PEP. Sometimes it's even too much for the adults.
Exactly.
But, I would do that only to be able to see and to hear if my child understood what they were taught at school that day. That's actually a very good way for certainly a parent who doesn't know how to help their child, say do their maths problem or help them with their English. It's also very good to try to help the child to reiterate what they have learned at school. And that's also the parent help. So there are lots of suggestions, even if a parent feels that they're not fully equipped to help their child with their homework or their schoolwork. So I think we can find many ways.
Add Samantha, make use of Parents' Day. When you have to go to school to talk to every teacher about your child's performance, make use of it. Ask the teacher questions. Seek out partnerships with the teacher. How can I help? What can I do at home to strengthen this? How can I, help you, the teacher, to teach my child better as well? So we need to see that we are active partners in education.
Yes, and it takes a village to raise a child. So that parent in that household, maybe they can knock on the door of their neighbor and ask for some help. It really does take a village to raise our children today.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And we encourage people to help as much as possible. They will send you to that young lady who they know can do the maths very well, your neighbor's daughter, or you're somebody who they know understand the history very well and can explain it better to the child. So those of us in the community who have the knowledge can and should share as much as possible, as much as we have the time to do so as well.
Yes. Okay, so we'll go on to a few more comments and questions. I have a comment here on YouTube from Ricardo Ramson. He says his issue is that most parents weren't taught how to be a parent, so they tend to raise their child
the same way they were brought up. I think that's a very, very good comment, Linda. I'd love to hear your response to that.
Oh, we talk about this every day in parenting partners, in our workshops, among ourselves and so on, the extent to which there needs to be more knowledge on parenting, and there needs to be more knowledge on raising your children. And thankfully, there are many, many more opportunities now for persons to learn about more effective parenting than, let's say, 20, 30 years ago. And the National Parenting Support Commission, I know, has several activities happening in schools, especially during Parents Month. Many churches are having parenting workshops. Many community organizations, certainly we get the calls at Parenting Partners for persons to come and talk about parenting or do a workshop with parents or what have you. What tends to happen though is that many parents feel, oh, I'm not going to tell me that I must not beat my child, so I'm not coming, you know? But the information regarding more effective parenting or positive parenting practices is wide, and it is very, very involved. And let me encourage parents to make use of the many opportunities that are now springing up all over the place. Challenge your women's group at church, challenge your men's group, your youth group in the community, whatever exists, to reach out to the organizations that exist within the Ministry of Education. I think the Ministry of Social Security and Labor and Social Security through the PATH program also has been doing some parenting workshops, and so the Ministry of Justice and so on. So there is help out there. There are NGOs like Parenting Partners Caribbean, like Fight for Peace, like Children First, Peace Management Initiative, Violence Prevention Alliance, to name a few, that do engage in parenting work, and you can get assistance through them in this way.
Yes, thank you for those resources. I'd like to also add to that, as Ricardo is saying in his commentary here, I think parents need to understand too that the way they were raised generations ago is likely to be not as useful. Some things remain the same. You know, some things remain the same, are non-negotiable, they don't change. So like good manners, it doesn't change from generation to generation. But because we are living in such a dynamic world now, things that my children are growing up with and what they have access to is so different from what I had access to. And so parenting must change. It can't be that you try to raise your child the same way you were raised. Of course, if you are keeping what I call the non-negotiables. So good manners doesn't change from generation to generation is an example I can give. But surely it must be that parents, it's a responsibility on themselves to really find out the best way to parent children in this new generation.
And
what do you say?
Yes. We have to remember that there's somebody said to me that we have to look at things in the context of the time when it happened. So
That's
somebody
right.
would say, for example, my mother did this and it never killed me. Or my father used to do that and it didn't kill me. Look at me now, kind of a thing. But now we have much more knowledge. Now we have much more information. And information is out there. And children are reading it and understanding it because they are, accessing the information more than the parents. And they know, for example, that there is a thing called child rights and that there are protections within the law for them. And so we can't do the same things in the same way that our parents did it because our children are way smarter than that now. You can't tell them that the stork is coming with the baby and the cow jump over the moon or whatever. They are going to question you. So we have to move along with the times and learn the new ways and the new strategies to raise our children. Certainly things like understanding your child does not change. You must understand your child. You must care for your child. You must love your child. Those things are foundational things that we must hold on to.
Yes. I have another interesting question here from, I believe it's Nastasia Mays on Facebook. She says, how do you guide a child that is overconfident and does not want to make mistakes? Very interesting.
Oh boy. How do you guide a child that's overconfident and does not want to make mistakes? Every child needs a relationship with a parent.
Yes.
And within that relationship, we have to teach our children what is real and what is not real. Mistakes are real things in life. Everybody is going to make a mistake somewhere, somehow. And the thinking is that within that relationship, we have to help a child to understand that, yes, but I make mistake too as a parent. Daddy make mistake, auntie make mistake, uncle make mistake, pastor make mistake, teacher make mistake, prime minister make mistake, everybody does. And it doesn't mean that you feel so badly over your mistake. What is good is that you learn what you did wrong and try to avoid it in the future. So it's really having a real discussion, a real down-to-earth talk with your child. And if you find that you can't get through, then seek somebody to whom the child will listen. There might be that uncle that you can sit down and tell him anything and he will follow. Maybe a teacher, maybe an older brother. But seek help from somebody. It doesn't always mean that you must find a counselor, because you know sometimes you can't find the right person out in some communities to help your children. But seek the help from somebody who the child will listen to as well. That can work.
Yes, yes, I do agree with those comments. I have another question here from Brenda Amos on YouTube. I think her question is probably the cry of many parents today. And so as I see the time coming up, I want to be able to have you answer this one particularly. So, my child is tired of the online class. How do I motivate her? She's only 6 years old.
Wow.
That's a struggle for the 6-year-old and a struggle for the mommy. You can hear the cry in her voice.
A struggle for me to answer it too, because I am tired of the online work, and so many of us get tired of the online work. I think though that as parents, we can have a little chat with the teacher, because I have been made to believe by a teacher who is close to me, who does quite a bit of online work, that one of the things that happens is that teachers sometimes don't understand how to make online work exciting and enjoyable and challenging even for a child. So send the child to do research. There are lots of online games and exciting things that they can do to enhance the lesson and to enhance the child's capability to learn and what have you. And the more teachers know of these and use them, is the better it is for our children to interface with the online platform and to feel happy while they're doing it, and to even look forward to going online. So if the parent can have a chat with the teacher and find out, how do you do this, or even watch to see how it is done. Because some teachers still believe that you do the same old chalk and talk kind of approach. And it really doesn't work online. It can't. You have to put into a game and throw into cartoon and find ways of relating to the child that makes the platform very, very exciting for them. And as parents, you can research it too. And you help your child. So when the boring lesson is finished, you're showing something that is fun and exciting for them to do, so that,
Yes.
it is usable and it is nicer for them.
Yes, I think the good utilization of breaks. So when the child does have a break, whether it's a you know, a morning break and an afternoon break to just kind of revive them, get them all raring to go for the next session. Could also help in motivating them as well. Breaks are very
Yes.
important, and I think sometimes we don't appreciate how exhausting it can be sitting from, say, 8 till 2. Breaks are very important, and for a 6-year-old who doesn't probably sit still much anyway,
Yeah.
it's very important, I think, to incorporate breaks that are encouraging, breaks that are motivating, just breaks, maybe doing nothing during that break, but getting ready for the next session.
Make it fun, make it exciting.
And yes, I agree. I have a very, what I would want to say, could potentially be a controversial question here from Paulette Reed on our Facebook platform. She says, when do you stop taking care of your child?
I'll tell her what my mother told me. She said, you're my child. And even when you're big and married, you are still my child. And all when I'm dead, you are still my child. So I can't tell you when to start and when to stop. I know that taking care of, though, means different things at different points in time. So when your child starts to work, you're not taking care of them financially anymore. They are doing their own thing now. But you're taking care of them in terms of love. You're bringing dinner for them once every ever so often, and what you still maintain some kind of involvement in their life where you show them that you still care about them and you still are their mother and what have you. So to my mind, it never stops. You always love your children, but the degree to which you are quote unquote taking care is going to change as the child grows older. Certainly nobody wants to have to be financially managing your 40-year-old and buying them shoes and them clothes and everything in the same way. You know, that's supposed to end much, much earlier. So every family will work out its own solutions. But I just want to say, as the life course continues, then the care will change. But you'll always be your mom, the mom or the dad, and they'll always be your pick-me. Yep.
Yeah, yes, I agree. I agree as well. They're always going to be your babies. I think I'd like to take maybe the last 2 questions as we get close to wrapping up. I have a question here. How can parents deal positively when there's jealousy among children in the family?
Oh, that's a very old story. And sibling rivalry is a thing. It's a real thing. I think it's good to begin to challenge them from very early in life. You are your brother's keeper. You are your sister's keeper. You are responsible for your brother. You are responsible for your sister. You are to do things together. You are to take care of each other, kind of a thing. So they learn from early a sense of responsibility and a sense of oneness with. Where it becomes difficult is if the parents begin to show that they favor one child over another. Or,
Yes.
and believe you me, children are going to say, if you have more than one, they're going to say, but you love that one more than me. And this one say, no, but she loves you more than how she loves me, kind of a thing. But as parents, we ought not to show favorites that will make the sibling rivalry even worse. But just to keep it in context, start from very early to teach children to work together and to support each other. And I hope that that will help. They will fight, they will quarrel. But when it boils right down to gravy, they will respect the fact that this is my brother, this is my sister, and we are one no matter what. Even though we fight, we are still together as one.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Linda. I think as I wrap up, I just wanted to kind of do a quick recap. We've spoken on a lot of areas, and I really want to just pull out some of what I found to be some of the key areas that you mentioned. Just discussing proper attitudes and practices among parents. It's always good to have a good attitude and to present good practices in front of your children. Again, what I found was very interesting. Kids are inherently, they're born good, and they are good, and there's much goodness in our kids, and we need to remember that. We also spoke about the importance of affirmations. Those positive affirmations go a long way to instilling great confidence in your children. It helps to build character as well. We spoke about, for the parent, importance of self-care, the importance of exercise and eating right. And as I mentioned to you in the clip, that, you know, we really need to understand that we can't really pour from an empty cup. So as parents, we need to fill ourselves up as much as possible to be able to pour a lot of goodness into our children. And we looked at, again, two things that don't change. The foundation, raising a child means understanding the child, caring for the child, and loving the child. And I think lastly, it's how important it is to treat our kids as individuals first. No two of your children or three of your children are likely to be the same. So you need to be able to address them first as the individuals that they are. Thank you, Linda. Thank you once again. Thank you so much for answering our questions this evening. And I want to thank our audience on our Facebook pages and YouTube pages. We want to thank you so much. And we ask you to tune in tomorrow for another session in Positive Parenting, where we will be talking about mental health, the psychology of it all. And as you know, this has been a very topical discussion since the start of COVID back in 2020. So we ask you to stay tuned tomorrow, bring your friends, encourage them to listen, tell them that we're going to have great tips, strategies, and tools for how to navigate during this pandemic in light of the mental health concerns. I wish you all a very good evening. I am Samantha Charles, your CEO for VM Foundation. This has been Positive Parenting. Good evening.